Hey guys, welcome to part 4 of liquidity. Okay, so in this video, I'll be talking about internal liquidity. So, internal liquidity is basically money or people's stop losses sitting within a given range. Okay, so these are basically your in between, these are basically in between your external liquidity points. So the general idea is once enough internal liquidity is taken to one side, we can anticipate our we can anticipate price to hunt external liquidity on the other. Okay, so let's look at this diagram right here. What this diagram is basically telling you is that each time the market comes back and takes out, okay, so first let's actually mark out your external liquidity points. Okay, so your given range. So whatever I marked in the blue is basically your external liquidity points. Okay, so the general concept, like I said, is the market will come for internal, and once enough internal liquidity is taken, it will move in the, or price will hunt the external in the opposite direction. Okay, so look at this for example right here. As you can see, after price printed this, or after the market printed this higher high, right, your external liquidity point right here, the market moves down and comes for this internal liquidity right here, right? So your internal liquidity, like I said, is your in between, right? So it's liquidity. So your internal liquidity is basically your liquidity that's in between the range, okay? So your ranges are the blue and your internal liquidity are these, okay? So it's literally the liquidity that is in between the highs and lows, or your external liquidity points. Okay, so these are all your internal. So look how price, after printing this external high, look how the price literally, or the market literally pulls back, coming for this internal liquidity, okay? And then once this internal liquidity is swept, right, the market moves in the opposite direction, right, and hunts for the external on the opposite side, okay? And then it hunts for this. And then the market goes up, right? Comes back for your internal liquidity, right? Doesn't take this internal, right? It leaves this one right here, but it takes out this one because it was sufficient enough for the market to move in the opposite direction, okay? These are also your internal liquidity points that the market leaves, and so on and so forth, okay? So that's the general concept of internal liquidity. Okay, so now let's look at internal liquidity on the actual charts. Okay, so here you see your internal liquidity, okay? All these right here are your internal liquidity. And what the market is doing is literally going from internal to external to internal to external, right? Look at this for example, right? Price pulls back, takes out this internal, right? And then that internal liquidity was sufficient enough for price to move in the opposite direction. So literally it's coming for internal. Look at these internal points. Price literally comes back for these internal points right here. This is also your internal liquidity. Obviously, it all depends on what time frame you're on. So on the daily, these are your internal liquidity. However, on the 4 hour, these would be your external liquidity, right? So it all just depends on what time frame you're currently sitting on. Okay. So this is the end of the internal liquidity video. In the next video, I will be talking about, well, to be honest, I'll be combining internal and external liquidity and basically give you guys the whole rundown, right? So you guys have a better understanding of how the market actually moves from liquidity to liquidity, okay? So that's all the market is doing, right? You don't want to focus on structure to find your direction. What you want to do is look for your liquidity.